So I'm live. All right. I am live. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself. Okay. Let's go ahead and get this going. Hi, I'm Gilbert. I'm gonna be working with, I'm gonna be creating a website here that works with Algorand. It works with Next.js. I'm gonna be using some Tailwind tonight is what I'm probably gonna be focusing on. It uses React within all of this. And so that's what I'm going to be focusing on to this evening. So, in particular, I'll go ahead and show you the app. Right now, it's not much. I've been working on this about a week now. It's got a home page, a contact, a little form, that a dashboard page, a gallery. Uh, Nothing too exciting yet. Oh, you know what? I don't even have this going. Hold on. Get the server going. There it is. That was my problem. So I'm probably going to be focusing this evening on adding some tailwinds. The thing is that I don't normally work with any of these technologies. Mostly what I've done in the past few years has been working with Vue. I've really enjoyed working with Vue. I don't know much about these crypto coins, but I came across one that actually interests me. It is called Algorand. It's kind of it's got a low price to get started. Um, it's not like Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a really big value. It's like sitting at a $60,000 for a Bitcoin right now. I think Algorand is sitting at not even at $2 for an algo at the moment. So anyway, I've owned about 10 algos so far. I haven't really invested all that much into it, but I do want to earn some algos, and so I feel like I want to make an app here, and I've teamed up with a guy named Troct. You can find him on Twitter at Troct, Troct, and he's been making some Algorand assets. He's an artist over here, and he's gone ahead and he's making some algos. He's been earning algos, selling his art. So I'm working with him, and this is his little gallery. And like I said, I'm working on it, but I haven't done uh, any kind of stylization yet. And the reason why is because I'm gonna be delving into this stuff. Like I said, I don't know it very well. None of these technologies have I worked with on any projects at all. These are my first projects. This is my first project with each of these technologies. Algorand, my first time using it. Next, this is my first time using it. I've heard of it in the past, mostly when I work with Node JS. I work with Express. I use Express. And so I know that this has been out recently and it's been getting quite a bit of traction from what I understand. So I just kind of really want to work with it and see what it is. And so that's why, and I feel like what I've seen is actually pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. It will do a lot of what I need it to do. And I'll go over that later. Uh, Now I'm gonna be working with Tailwind for the most part because Tailwind I've used Bootstrap. Mostly what I know in the past has been Bootstrap. Bootstrap's pretty simple. I've used it, through 3, 4, 5. I've used it. It's real popular, but I'm gonna use this instead because Tailwind is gaining a lot of traction in a lot of things that I see. Especially like in Laravel, I use Laravel, and Laravel's now kind of coming with this Tailwind React situation instead of what it was doing Vue and Bootstrap. So so I'm gonna go ahead and just dive right into it. I don't know anything about it. I've uh, just come to the documentation page a couple of times now and haven't really even read over it. So this is what I'm probably going to be doing this evening is working on Tailwind, and I'm going to be trying to incorporate it into my code back here. And I guess I'm going to go over this code one more time before we get started. So let's take a look at what this code is. What I did is I actually just created a Next project, a Next.js project, and that's easy enough to find in the docs. And it created a whole folder system here that other than this one, this was built by, this is the development build. Then VS Code, that's really, I gotta put that into my git ignore over here. Git ignore. Let's ignore dot environment files. Let's go VS Code. VS Code, and we'll go ahead and VS Code, just like that. So I'll make sure I get rid of that. There you go. So I don't have this VS Code in my Git scenario. Just add that to my git ignore. Components, I created this one. Components, pages was created. This one came public, styles. I created the dot environment folder. I'm not going to show that one because that's got something that shouldn't be shown. Let's see. And then I've got, obviously it built a lot of this. The git ignore, came with the git when I did git. So forth and so forth. So let me see, that's just this code. Pages are where I've noticed React is, this is Next. Pages is right here in Next. Let me show you the code right here, the documentation. This is the documentation for pages. So when I come through things that I don't understand or I don't know and I want to learn them, like these frameworks, Next is a good framework. You always want to go to the docs and go to the documentation. Lots of them have this getting started. Like this is where I figured out I did this npx. I actually did this one, npx create next app at latest at TypeScript. So I think the name next app is what you know. So anyway, create next app. And he created this whole folder setup, and I've added a few things. I've already made a few pages. Again, remember that's the home page. So if you see the home page, we'll take a look at the code. So in the code back here, you see pages, and the index will actually serve. This is the code for the home page that you see over here. And this home page, if you notice, is just up at the top. It's got some links, completely unstylized. Remember, these are unstylized. These are just links that are the different pages, and it's got a few pictures. It's got a few paragraphs. It's got a few headers. It's got the Algodroids. Algodroids Battle is a new NFT game being created on the Algorand blockchain. A total of 150 unique droids to be minted for the first battle series. It's going to be a game, just telling you, we're going to be making a game in this server. This is what it is. And it's going to allow you to, it's going to be like, think Pokemon style collecting meets RPG elements like Final Fantasy. Each droid will have a weapon class. I went back too far. But let's go back. So, yeah, here's anyway, it's gonna be a game. We're gonna make a game using this Algorand, one way or another. It's gonna work out, and we're gonna be using an RPG system. So we got an idea of how it's all gonna work. We just are building it now because I'm working with Chalk. We've talked it all out, and we're gonna make this work. Anyway, so that's this page, and that's in the code right here. So if you notice, this is a React. Well, it's a React element technically, but it's also this next page. This is all in TypeScript. So if you're not familiar with TypeScript, I've used TypeScript in the past, but since I've used TypeScript in the back, let me see. I'm looking here. Sorry about something. I've used TypeScript in the past. I don't use it extremely very often, but projects do come across it. I've used Angular, and Angular uses TypeScript, and even in Vue you can kind of use TypeScript. And I've used TypeScript, I believe, in Phaser for other little video game things, but it's something that I understand what TypeScript does, this transpiler, and it really helps you keep JavaScript, updated and make sure that you're using the right JavaScript for, the right browser. That some browsers have different versions. Now we got ES5, ES6, and so forth. So JavaScript is evolving, and as JavaScript completely begins to change more and more, the TypeScript really is going to help keep track of making sure you're using the right JavaScript versions. So and on top of that, more than that, it brings types to JavaScript, which is really cool because when I went to school many years ago to learn software engineering, I learned Java, and Java. I don't use Java at all, pretty much. I haven't used Java in any projects. I've learned how to do some uh, Android apps every now and then. I kind of, just to stay on top of what is out there, but I don't really use Java very often. But is really type heavy. It's really type strict, and it really. I find that now that I'm a more seasoned developer, that in the early stages I couldn't understand how types worked, and I really couldn't understand how you had to change um, from a string to a number, and then like you had to use a completely different type, a completely different object, and it was all very complicated when I first learned it, and I didn't understand. So that's why I took to JavaScript a little bit easier, because JavaScript didn't enforce none of that. You could have JavaScript, you could make a variable, it would be a string 1 minute, and then it'd be a number the next moment, and then you could turn it straight to a boolean. It didn't really matter if you wanted to change it however you wanted to change it in JavaScript. But that brings that's a change with TypeScript. It really makes you keep your types, so it really makes sure that you're using a number where you need to use a number, and you're using a string where you're using a string. But it really helps you with your auto. Um, it helps you code. Like it'll help you choose. It'll help you make code. It'll write code out for you. So your like VS Code that I'm using, and you know what? I'm not even showing it, so I might as well. I pressed the button over here. It'll really help you know what kind of data types you're using when you begin to code. And so I've really liked how TypeScript helps with that. That's a big thing to me. So I really like it. But yeah, here you see the code. It's pretty simple. I haven't done anything. I could do a lot more stuff. I noticed that there's a navigation right here. That's a component. If you notice up here, let's see, you see it right here, navigation. I import it. This is how TypeScript kind of imports everything. So you import navigation from, and I'm importing it from the components templates navigation. So that's this components. I made this folder, by the way, so I imported it from this folder, and I could just make templates. And if you look, I got a navigation template, and this is really just where I have the links. And if you notice up here, I have to import link from next link. So uh, this is all from Next.js. So if you go back to Next.js, this is all things that I had to read, and I had to come across from the documentation in here to find out how, for example, next link works. Because before they want you to next link is how next transitions between the routes. So client side transitions between routes can be enabled via the link component exported by next/link. So this is where I kind of saw this, and I just kind of figured it out on my side, and I was able to write it in the code. Here you go. I just got a home. I haven't, like I said, it hasn't been stylized for nothing, but here you could see what's going on. So that's that part. And then go back to this index. Really, that's what you see. Let me go back to this. So really, that's what you're seeing over here, this particular page. The contact page I'm not going to work with, because that actually has a embedded link for a constant contact form that I'm not really interested in showing that right now. It works, but not really anything I'm looking for. The dashboard is a page that doesn't show anything. Once again, these are just pages, though. If you look in the code, these are just pages, If you go right here, pages, you've got contact page. This is the contact page over here. Then we've got the dashboard, which is the dashboard page. Doesn't really have anything. It just says dashboard. The contact page actually does have some code, and this is all from the constant contact form. And that's something that I believe Chalk sent me to sign up for when he wants it. Let's see, dashboard. And then the gallery page is the page I've been working on the most here. You can kind of see this is the code that I've written. And this is where I've been really testing code out. And this, what this does, this page, gallery page, let me show that. This is the gallery page. This is the page that you see the code for the biggest section of code that I got. And it's just pages from this guy, Trox Gallery. This is actually making a call from Algorand. So I guess I'm gonna show that. Let me show that. So this is the calls from Algorand. So, well, this is the gallery link. This is the gallery component. Now this is, once again, this is a React component. And if you know down here, where is the render? Here's the render. The render, it renders this div, with the container. It's got it's got the same navigation component. Then it says this is Chalk's galleries. And what's cool is this create current pages. So then I also show the current page, and the current page is right now is just showing 20 assets at a time. But when it does this, what it does is create current page. You'll notice right here that in create current page, there is this is not how it works. It just shows the current page shows props, assets, params, name, and it's got an image source with the params URL. So it's just showing the name of the asset and the URL. And I guess now that I remember, React, not React, but Next.js, the way it does the props is you get static props. So this is what was interesting. Let me go over this a little bit. Get static props. We're gonna go to the Next.js over here. This is in data fetching. So in data fetching, let me look at it up here. Data fetching. So there's Next.js has two forms of pre-rendering: static generation, and server-side rendering. In this page, we'll talk in depth about data fetching strategies for each case. We recommend you to read through the pages, blah, blah, blah. So I use there's get static props, get static paths, and that's kind of cool. I haven't even used this yet. Specify dynamic routes to pre-render pages based on data. So this is cool because this is actually built at this is all statically done. So you actually it gets the data for you, and then it allows it to be built. So this is cool for like SEO. And why it's cool is because now when Google or Bing or all these other, these search engines, when they send their robots to come search your website, lots of times with JavaScript in the past, what you have is you've got data that is not valid. You don't get this data until somebody actually clicks a button, or they, until the page loads. Sometimes they don't do it until the page loads. And then once the page loads, then it takes information from a database, and then it comes back, and then it changes the HTML, and it re-renders. But the problem with that with SEO is that when they send their robots, they're only scraping the HTML. They're not necessarily running the JavaScript. So they don't have access to some of the keywords and some of the data that's on your website, because they didn't run the JavaScript, because it doesn't care. It's just scraping your site for the HTML to get whatever keywords that Google and all those search engines are looking for. That's the SEO, the search engine optimization. So this actually gets the data, when the client, so like the robot, the Google robot, when they first make the request to the server actually gets all the information first through this get static props, and then it actually renders it, it gives it access to, or it gives uh, the server access to that data before it actually renders the HTML, so that when it sends the HTML, when the server sends the HTML back to the client that made the request, well then, and that, for example, being the robot, the Google robot, that robot suddenly has access to the full HTML with all your data that you've done. So for example, going back to this page, what's happened is I've actually, let's look at the code. The code is actually, I've used the get static props, and I've made a fetch. If you see this, await fetch. And right now I'm just doing my local host because this is all just a development thing. But I've made a call to an API address. If you look at the API, you'll notice that. So you'll see that this is the local host, API slash algo slash account slash, and this is Trock's account. It is a public account, so this is his algo address, and that's what he uses to make algo transactions. But anyway, here in the pages slash API slash algo, you'll see that I have another folder called account. Inside that folder, I've got a page called address.ts, and this address is well, it's in brackets because it allows me to. This is how Next handles some of their responsive. How do you say this? Their dynamic routing. So this is when you go to the dynamic routes. Was it dynamic routes? Yeah, I think so. You see how they have brackets right here. Any route like post /1, post /ABC, etc. will be matched by pages /post /PID. And that's the naming, see how it's wrapped in these brackets. You can't see it because I don't have it showed it up here. This is in the Next.js documentation under routing and dynamic routes. You'll see that the way they do it is that they have any route like post /1 or post /ABC. This is what I was just saying out loud earlier. Will be matched by pages post /PID, and these .jss, and this PID is wrapped in brackets. So you see that, and that's what I've done with this particular title of this particular page, which is address, which is, if you see the header right there, you've got address, it's under account, under algo, under API. So this is its own page, but it's actually an API route. So it returns some JS. I mean, not some JS, but some I can't even remember the word. JSON, not JS, JSON. It returns JSON. And that JSON is then handled by this, it gets the JSON, which is, I'm getting the assets. All these assets are the assets that Troct has created, not the assets that he owns, because I could check assets that he owns, and this is from the API. So if you notice that in the address over here, I'm making a connection to the mainnet Algorand API at PureStake.io. So I'm using a third-party API to make calls because I do not have a Algorand node set up. So an Algorand node, with an Algorand node, I would end up just making, if I had a server here at my house, which I do, but I can potentially install one, but I haven't. That's all things that I'm gonna, deal with later. So right now I'm just using the PureStake API, and over here, here's my connection. I'm not gonna go ahead and show none of this too much. The API key should be secret, so I've put it out in my environment, my process environment through Node. So it's an environment variable. So let's see, and then this is all kind of from the documentation. Here it is. client account information, and yeah, this is all from the SDK. So yeah, this is Algorand portion. So this part is Algorand. So if you notice, I'm using Algorand within the Next.js, and the Algorand, I'm making calls to check out the transaction. And this is all things that I'm not going to really explain because it's all found in the Algorand. But you'll notice that I got the client information, the account information, using the address that was supplied. Uh, and that address was supplied, if you remember, through this page right here, through the account. And just like this is the dynamic routing that comes with Next, it's in the account. And then I sent this folder. This is from the front end, from the gallery page. And that went and grabbed this page, and this page got the account information from Algorand, and it sent back the Algorand information. And then this was all placed inside of the render so that the render actually had access to it. So if you see this, these are this is just, things that happen in the render. Here's some methods that get called: the create index and the create current path, create current page. And these do have access to create index, and create current pages. They have access to the props. Here are the props. This props.assets params, and it gives me some errors, but only because I don't. And these errors come from TypeScript, and this is because I don't have these assets beyond telling it that it's an array. It knows it's an array, but beyond that, it doesn't really know that params is on it, and so that's why it gives me an error. But it works just fine because it is still in JavaScript, and JavaScript doesn't care necessarily about those. So it still builds and it doesn't crash on me. So that's good to know. But that's kind of what's going on back here. And I really just kind of, at this point, I'm just giving an overview, which is kind of cool. So next time, I'm already getting tired. It is Saturday night. I didn't even do any development yet. Maybe I should before I get going. It's already 8 o'clock. But I feel like I've given a pretty good introduction to what is going on here. But yeah, let's go ahead and move forward. The rest of the night, what I wanted to do was I wanted to go through this Tailwind process. So I haven't looked over Tailwind for much. So before anything, I'm going to go to the installation, and I see that it's got an installation guide. So I'm going to just scroll through it real quick. If you know anything about how you should look over things, you should always kind of skim through things when you first come across it. So let's see, there's a configuration file. It tells you how to include it. Building your CSS using there's a CLI, so that's pretty cool. There's a Tailwind CLI. Watch for changes, custom CSS file, blah, blah, blah. Just looking through everything. I did see up at the top where it's got this integration guides, and this is Next.js, and that's exactly what I'm using. Look, they've already got a Next.js. I don't even know what that's about. I've used Laravel, so Laravel, it incorporates pretty easily into Laravel too. So, and Vue, I've been using Vue 2. Vue 3 is coming out. Well, it's been out for a while now. I have not used Vue 3. And that was the thing when I decided, what am I going to do for this next project? Should I use Vue 3 or should I just use Next.js? And I just decided Next.js. So really, it's nothing to say anything bad about the Vue community or anything. It's just there's so many different technologies out there, and I just hear buzzes and buzz, and I find what's popular. And I feel like this past year when I was looking, I feel like Next.js had some popularity that Vue did not have, and Laravel had a bit too. But even Laravel's popularity was kind of going to React in the front end, React in this Tailwind. So I just decided, why not go use Next? Because I really want to use JavaScript, and I really want to use Node a little bit more than the PHP. Even though I really like PHP and I really love the Apache server and all that, I really want to get into Node because I really just like using JavaScript all the time. Quite honestly, it is easier than using PHP and JavaScript. which can become, when you're transferring. It's not like it's difficult, but using JavaScript is just one. I don't know why. I like it. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut up about that part. So let's go ahead and install Tailwind as best I can. So I did not install my Next app with Tailwind. I wasn't sure if I was gonna actually use it, but I didn't. You could have installed it with Tailwind, but I didn't. I did install it with TypeScript, but not with Tailwind. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and install Tailwind via npm. So I am on Next.js version 10 or newer, so I got the latest. So I'm just gonna go ahead and npm install the Tailwind CSS, the Post CSS, and Auto Prefixer. So let's go ahead and copy that. I'm just copying that. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that to my VS Code, and I'm gonna, right now at the bottom you'll see that I'm running the server. So I'm gonna go ahead and cancel out of that. So the server is now down, and I'm gonna go ahead and npm install that and see what happens here. So if you notice, it's installing, and let's see, it doesn't take too long. It's installed, great. So now let's go back to the code, or to the documentation. So let's see. Now next, generate your Tailwind config and post CSS config file. So let's go ahead and do this. It's got npx tailwind css init.p. npx I already got installed, so that's just part of the node. So it says this will create a minimal Tailwind config file at the root of your project. It will also create a post CSS config, and let's see, Tailwind auto post. Okay, blah blah blah. If you're planning to use any other post CSS plugin, you should read our documentation on using post CSS as your preprocessor. And you know what? Post CSS is also something I've never used. I'm used to SASS, or back in the old days, it was even less before that. Less SAS. Now there's post CSS as well, it seems like. And I've never used that, so that's just another new thing that I'm going to be apparently probably having to learn. So anyway, so after that, we're going to configure the Tailwind. So let me go back up here, get this code. I'm going to get the npx Tailwind CSS init. And we'll just go ahead and get out of this. We'll go back here to my code, and let's see. So now it says created Tailwind CSS, created post CSS. So now we'll see that right here, there's Tailwind, and here's this configuration file, and then here's post CSS also, which has one right here. Oh, great. I think I might have to go. Hold on, just one moment. Just one moment. Okay, no. All right, and let me see what else we got here. That's that. Okay, so it did what it said it was gonna do. So great. And let's go back. So it did what it said it was gonna do. It created those winds. There's the configuration. Configure Tailwind to remove unused styles in production. In your Tailwind config.js file, configure the purge option with the paths to all of your pages and components so Tailwind can tree shake unused styles in production builds. So that's pretty cool. It's got a purge, so it tells you right here in your configure the purge, blah, blah. So purge, let's copy that purge that it's got right there, and let's go back to the code. And the code was talking about the Tailwind, right? Was it the Tailwind? Yeah, here's the Tailwind. So it says right there, this guy. Let's go ahead and do that, and then do this. So that's what it said. So now all the pages, all the unused pages, and so it knows pages and components. Wow, and I built that components right there, so it knows its own right here. So that's really cool. So now we got that going. Let's go back to see what it says in this. So that's what this is telling me to do. Read our separate guide on optimization for production to learn more about tree shaking unused styles. So that's something I'm not going to get into right now because obviously that's for production. So now we got to include Tailwind in your CSS. So this is what we're looking at now. When including Tailwind in the Next.js project, there are two approaches you can take. So you can import Tailwind directly in your JS. So that's on the page. If you aren't planning to use them, you can safely delete any CSS files Next.js creates for you by default, like global CSS and home module CSS. So that's CSS files. I am using those. I probably won't use them. It'll say delete any references to them with your components as well, but I'll do that at a later time. I'm not really into that. So I'm going to include Tailwind in your CSS. Open the .styles.global CSS file so I can either import it into my JavaScript. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to this. So when I do it, so basically if I just want it for one of the components, so like if I just wanted one page right here, like this gallery page, if this was the only page, for example, that I wanted to even add Tailwind to, I could just import it right here. This is what it said. So let me see, how did it show me? How did it show me to import this? It says import Tailwind CSS. So right now, let's go back. Right now, I do got the styles home module. This was the one that Next.js created. And so then if I do that, let's see how that changes everything. So let me go ahead and npm run dev. And it pops up. Now let's see what happens when I look at the gallery. Let's see. It does look like maybe there's already some styling. Let me see what happens here. It says it's still compiling. So let me inspect the page. And let me see the console. So styles is not defined. Okay, so now, see, that's why I didn't want to do that, because I've already got in the code, I've already gotten styles inside the page that I've incorporated from that global CSS. So, for example, container, I'm not entirely sure if that's found on the Tailwind. So let's go ahead and get back up here, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that guy and get rid of that guy, and make that come back. So now, if we go back to the sign over here, what happens? Now the page builds again. Great, now it's not broken. Okay, so if we get back to this, we're going to do it the other one. We're going to include Tailwind. So now instead we're going to do it that way. We're going to go to the globals CSS that Next.js generates for you, and use the @Tailwind directive to include Tailwind's base component. So check this out, Tailwind, and we're going to copy this stuff. Okay, we copy that. And now let's go to my VS Code. Oops. Let's see. But we're going to do it instead of that global CSS. And I think I find that right here in styles. See, it's got a global CSS. I guess I should bring it on global CSS. No, I've just been using the home. I don't even have but a couple of things. So let me go ahead and paste that here, kind of just up top at tailwind.base. Unknown rule. I don't know what that says, but let's see what it does. Let me see now if okay, styles, home, modules, syntax selector. After is not pure. Pure selectors must contain at least one local class or ID. So why is this giving me issues? Oh, you can't even see the issues it's giving me. For some reason, it's giving me this issue. Styles, home. So, well, that's a problem right here. I think this is still this one way. Include Tailwind in your, include in your JSS. Nope, there it is right there. So Let's see. Generally use the @tailwind directive, base components and utilities, replacing the original file contents. Okay, so that's what it's saying. So let me take this out and see if. All right, fine then. Forget that. Let's take it out of here and let's go ahead and go to the global, because maybe it does something else in Next. So it says get rid of this stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and just comment it out, and let's go up a little bit and let's try this again. Still looks like it's giving me some sort of unknown rule at Tailwind. So why is that giving me more? Okay, well, that seemed to have worked actually. And if you noticed, okay, so what did I do? Instead of, I didn't show you this while I was actually doing it, but instead of putting it on the home modules CSS like I did over here, I just went ahead and put it on the global. I got rid of all the stuff that was already there and I pasted it here, and sure enough, it compiled into this. And if you look at it, you'll notice that now this H1 or this H2 right here, that's no longer visible. Like it's not as, even the algo droids right here, these are all headers, and these headers no longer really have any kind of style to them. So then when I go to sources too, let's go ahead and take a look at source. Let's see styles. We do have the global, and it does have, so let's see. Bam, bam, bam. Yeah, so it comes in. So there it is. So we've got Tailwind working now. So this is what it says. Finally, ensure your CSS file is being imported in your pages/app.js component. Oh, so this is why it probably was giving me issues over here. So now we got to go make sure. Let's go back to the code. And it wanted me to go, where did it want me to go? It said it wanted me to go check out the app. So I guess it's, where is the app? I guess it's, where is it? Public, Tailwind, tsconfig. I guess it's in public. No, it's not in public. It's probably in pages. Oh, here it is. Pages, app, tsx. And so, yeah, here it is, import styles. So that's what it was making sure that we did. Import the styles from global CSS. And that is exactly what is happening. So, now we have Tailwind installed. So that's that. And now, before I can even get started in using it, I kind of got to understand what Tailwind does. I've installed it. It is clearly working now. I have it. I don't know how to use it. So I see this getting started. There's some things. There's a release notes, upgrade guide, editor support, using with preprocessors. I'm not really optimizing for production. I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm going to go straight to these core concepts. So I've installed Tailwind. Now let's go check out core concepts of what Tailwind is all about. What is Tailwind all about? So they build in complex components from a constrained set of primitive utilities. So that's what they're all about, a constrained set of primitive utilities. So whenever you need to, so it says traditionally whenever you need to style something on the web, you write CSS. Sure, so this is it right here. So this is like HTML page. Here's a chat notification, and it's got the class chat notification logo wrapper. Here's another class, chat notification logo. So you put these classes. That's what it's saying. You put class, 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 and then you write your style component right here, and you chat notification. That's one right here, chat notification. It's got display flex, max width, margin, padding, border radius. And these are your different classes with their different styles. That's what it says traditionally. That's how you write CSS. Sure, great. That's what I understand all that. With Tailwind, you style elements by applying pre-existing classes directly in your HTML. Okay, so you apply pre-exact. So it's just like Bootstrap. You get there's classes that exist and you put them directly into your HTML. So For example, div class p-6 max-w-sm. Then you got another class mx-auto, another class bg-white, rounded-xl, shadow. So these are different classes. And you put that on your div. Here's another div. It's got a flex shrink 0. Here's another class, an image class with h12, w12. So that seems just like kind of like Bootstrap right there. I can notice that in the image where you see that looks like your height of 12, a width of 12. Maybe your source is your image. So that's kind of interesting. Let's see. In the example above, we've used Tailwind's Flexbox and padding utilities. So Flexbox utility, and if you know anything about Flexbox is what makes your boxes, go from like a width of like 3 different, containers that drop down to one container over another container. So that's that's all in CSS, of course. Let's see. What was I reading at? I lost it already. Here you are. Flexbox and padding utilities, where you see flex shrink 0, and P6. So the P6 is padding, and there's the flex right here where you said flex shrink right here, and there's the P6 flex shrink. Sure. To control the overall card layout, and this is what they're developing right here. This little image, if you see that, that's what this code is for. There's the max width and margin utilities, max WSM and max auto, and then to constrain the card width and center it horizontally. The background color, border radius, and box shadow utilities. So these are all the things that they're using. These are all different types of utilities. You got background color, border radius. Oh, check this out. I clicked on a button right here. Border radius, background color gives me some. Look at BG. So you can set all these. BG transparent, BG current, BG black, oh, look at BG gray 200. So let me take this. And then this is all something I could put in the class name. So now let's go. Let's check this out. If I go to VS Code back here, and now let's go to the gallery. And so over here, I got styles right from the home modules. So it should also be in the entire app. I shouldn't even need to do it. I could just, it's already in the app. So now we go down here to, I don't know, this index. I got this class name. So class name style container and styles. I don't even, let's see, what do I have that connected to? Styles from styles. Okay. So I guess I need to also, let's see. Okay, so maybe I don't even need to do that. Let me see. This is Next.js, so where's my render? Okay. Right here, class name. Why do I have container? Why not get rid of all this? And we'll go with BG. Oh yeah, let's paste that right here. BG grade 200. So that's the class name now of the entire image, the entire card. Let's go back. So let's check out the edge. So now let's go to the gallery page. And it didn't really change anything. So let me see if there's a console. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to, well, no, I guess it is a background color. Oh, that's gray. Come to think about it, I guess it did work. Yeah, the whole background is gray. It's gray 50. So if you go to dashboard and you go over here, so I go to the elements over here. Let's take, yeah, background gray right here. I didn't even notice it. So I got this for the whole, oh, so if you notice, okay, so cool. So what I've done is in the code, this background, let's 200, let's go black. Let's see if I change it back to black, if that does anything. So now we go back to, it did not do anything. It didn't do anything, but you can't see that. So Let me show you. So that means that gray, obviously, I could just put black right here. Let me go back then and just put black. So let's get rid of the 200 because that was part of the gray. So we get rid of black and then we go back and we'll see. Oh, look, see now the whole background is black. So that's cool. So that's some that, that's what we're learning here. This is what I'm learning. Tailwind. So let's go back. So that's how you do that. You just kind of put these class names, you put them in the class names that they've got, and it will affect your CSS. And so that's how Tailwind works. And much very similar to, this is how Bootstrap works too. Bootstrap has its own different kinds, though, its own different types of this or that, but that's how you do that. Okay, so let's see. So that's how we're really going to be working with Tailwind. So keep that in first. That's what we're going to be doing. You put different things like that as class names, and it happens to that particular element. So let's see what it says. Why not just use inline styles? A common reaction to this approach is wondering. So if you don't know anything about this, which like I said, I've used Bootstrap, so I'm very familiar with this concept. But if you're not used to this concept, like if you're over here writing your own CSS all the time, that's fine and dandy, and you've never used one of these. It's just something that you're wondering, well, why that? Why does this work? Well, it really makes things a lot easier to style because you just take like shorthand. It's a shorthand. It shortens everything, and you put it right into your elements. So it makes things much easier to work with than just writing all kinds of CSS and writing out the different, writing out all kinds of different classes and specific classes for, it gets complicated when you're writing a lot of CSS instead of just writing a bunch of CSS names that are already pre-written for you. There's a whole bunch out there already, and they just add different kinds of CSS that you can pack together to make cool, great designs. So I'm not going to even read about that. Maintainability concerns. It's real maintainable. I know how to use these types, so I'm not going to get much more into this. I got the main concept. Basically, it's the same. It's very similar to Bootstrap if you're familiar with that. And I'm very familiar with that. It's got different types of classes, obviously, different types of utilities, but it is talking about how they really like to use the utilities. And let's go next to the responsive design. So great, using responsive utility variants. What does this mean? Every utility class in Tailwind can be applied conditionally at different breakpoints, which makes it a piece of cake to build complex responsive interfaces without ever leaving your HTML. So this is, once again, like if you know Bootstrap, there's a grid system. And so that's kind of what this sounds like. There's breakpoints. So you got a small breakpoint, which is at 640 pixels. You got a medium breakpoint at 716. This is obviously the size of this is your, oh yeah, look at it. They're like media queries. So this is your media query, minimum width, 640. Minimum width, so this is exactly what it's showing you, that these are your breakpoints. And apparently you just put them in your class, so you just add. So let's see, width of 16. So you got width of 16. So to add a utility but only have it affect at a certain breakpoint, all you need to do is prefix the utility with the breakpoint name followed by the followed by the colon character. So image class width 16, W-16, and then you do it medium colon width 32. So you're telling it that normally it's got a width of 16 by default. But then, and that's what it says, 32 on medium screens. But then you got a medium screen, so screens that are medium, it's actually got a width of 32. And then at large screens, it's got a width of 48. So you see how you can actually, that's what the responsive is. You can make you can make a particular element small, big, or large, depending on the size of the screen that it's being viewed on, that the user is viewing it. So this is something that, once again, I'm very familiar with coming in from Bootstrap. So I don't think I'll have too much of a problem. I really just got to kind of get into this and look more on how it's working, because it does look like lots of times with, like, for example, there's columns in Bootstrap. It's got columns, column, and I don't know if they're moving out of that just yet or how they're going to be doing that because of this Tailwind. But this is kind of doing it where you just put the screen size right before, followed by the colon, and then you put whatever its utility is afterwards, like the flex right here, the flex shrink, but that's only on medium screens. It doesn't really happen on the small screens, but it happens at the medium and beyond screens. So yeah, this is very similar to Bootstrap in a way. So mobile first is also another concept. Uses a mobile first breakpoint system. So like Bootstrap, it even compares itself to Bootstrap. What this means is that unprefixed utilities like uppercase take effect on all screen sizes, while prefixed utilities like MD uppercase only take effect at the specified breakpoint and above. So for example, if you keep it without the SM and the colon, you just put text center. So let's go, if you notice up here, let's go ahead and go back to this. Let's get rid of the black. Well, let's go back gray, and we had 200, right? So gray 200, and then right here, we'll also put text center. Text center is what it said, right? So we just put text center, and that works out. And look, it centered everything, if you notice already. So everything's been centered just by adding like that. And so now it doesn't really matter what screen size I have it at, it's always centered, you see? So now what I could do though is, if I go back to this code, let's take a look, and text center, if I do say, for example, LG text center, now we go back, and now you'll see that it's still centered. However, it's only centered for the large screens. And if you remember the right here, let's take a look. Where was it? Responsive. Let's go back up to the top. Where's the breakpoints? What happened here? Okay. So large is only for 1024 pixels and above. And if you notice, I'm at 1372. If you see up in the top right hand corner, and I'm dropping the width. The width is at 1128, 1044. Oh, and then I passed that breakpoint and everything stopped being centered. Here it is, centered, and now it's back to the left. Centered, not. So that's what it means by that. So the responsive, based off of that, it only works for large and above. And that's how, so targeting a single breakpoint, which means, let's see, will be applied. If you'd like to apply a utility at one breakpoint only, the solution is to undo that utility at larger sizes by adding another utility that counteracts it. So BG green 50 is the default. At medium, it's BG red 500, but at large, it's LG BG green 500 again. So basically, for that one and one midpoint, midpoint and that one size alone, it's red. But at large screens and at small screens, it's back to that green 500. So, but anyway, that's pretty cool. That's pretty nifty. That's very similar to like I said, to Bootstrap. So, and then they have hover, focus, and other states. So this is, check it out. You put these classes, that's great. You could actually, so for example, if you notice, I hover over sign up. So that's this button, hover, background purple 700. And when it's got focus, outline none. Focus, you got ring 2. So look, see, I took out the focus. There it is, focus, take it out. Put this, look at that. It's got all kinds of interesting things. So yeah, you could do that all through. So this is stuff that you would normally write in your CSS, but not in this particular fashion. But you would be writing about the on hover or on focus attribute. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's got the hover over here. Look at hover over me, hover over me. So hover BG red 700. So you could just throw that into anything. There's a background color. That's how you do that. Add the hover. Is enabled for the following core plugins. There's core plugins that I'm not really sure about, but background color, background opacity. So you can make this hover on all of these different ones. Okay, cool. And you could add the focus. So there's the focus. There's when you got focus ring 2, focus ring blue 600. So it's got the ring 2, which is probably the size of the border. It's a ring 2, and then it also has focus ring blue 600, which makes the color blue. So it tells you all those, and you got active. So that's active. When you click on it, it's active. That, BG green 500, but it's 700 green when you click on it when it's active. So that's pretty cool. These are all things that you have to become familiar with if you're going to use them. So I got to read through all of these before I could even get started. I got to be able to read through all of these so that I know what I can actually use within my CSS. And of course, a lot of this is very similar to other things, and it's very similar, obviously, to CSS. It's writing CSS rules for you behind the scenes. Oh, look, it's got a dark mode. So that is kind of interesting. You can style in dark mode. It's kind of comes with dark mode kind of already. That's pretty cool. And then it's got adding base styles. So you could add base styles, extracting components. So you can extract these components in a certain way. Oh, look at this, the customization. It's got a configuration. This is what I was kind of looking at. There's a theme that you could actually make different themes, which is pretty cool. That's not something I remember being able to do on Bootstrap, but yeah, so that's this project, and that's the technology I'm using. I didn't really do too much development. I'm really going over this Tailwind because I really want to get into styling and doing some more development. Because right now this doesn't look like much, and I need to style it. Obviously, it's not really the coolest thing to be doing this, but it is something that I'm very, I'm getting working on. So I just want to do this. So if anybody's interested in how this project is going, or even just development, I'm going to be doing more live streams while I develop this application. And hopefully people will, if you like it, you'll come see it and you'll see how I'm doing it. And if you'd like more, you can make your own, or if you're just looking for how to get into this. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight. And I've been Gilbert. So